Welcome to the Charter and Rules meeting. It is Monday, May 6th, 2024. It is 6:30. We are meeting in City Hall chambers, and this meeting can be accessed remotely on Zoom. It can also be watched on the local access channel 15 using the television's SAP option through the live stream on the city website, of course, as well on Zoom. And you can access on the Zoom feed the Spanish interpretation by clicking the interpretation option and then just choosing Spanish, which I think is really awesome in terms of accessibility that Zoom has that feature. All right. I'd entertain a motion in order to take up item 1 to approve the minutes of the March 25th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Before we continue, I just want to make sure that I want to name that I am the chair of Charter and Rules, Meg McGrath-Smith. On my left is Councilor and City Council President Tessa Murphy-Ramboletti, and on my right is Councilor Linda Vacant, and then we're also joined in chambers by Councilor Devine and also by Councilor Ocasio. Thank you for joining us. I think also, yes, ladies' night. Almost all the ladies at the council. All right, and I don't see anyone else on Zoom. Okay, all right. So
motion to take up item 1.
thank you, and
Second.
was seconded by Murphy-Ramboletti. Any discussion on the minutes?
No.
Okay. Can we do a voice vote then, since
Yeah.
we're fully here and present? Yay. Okay,
Motion to
so
accept the minutes.
then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, let's move to item 2.
Motion to take item 2.
This is from myself. Ordered that the legal department clarify the meaning of senior member as related to City Council Rules 3B and 8D.
Should we, I'd like to offer a motion to suspend rules and take up items 2 and 3 together.
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And let's start by just entering into the record just a bit of a description of what this was. So this was in response to just wanting to clarify what we mean by senior member, because it does exist in both our rules and also in certain provisions of the city charter. And especially because we had some counselors who had returned to us from not being on council for a few years, it was a question I wanted to get a little bit of ahead of, just getting a legal opinion on what is the actual legal determination of that term. Did it mean the oldest? Did it mean the longest serving? Did it mean the longest serving of sequential years? Right? What does that mean? So we did receive this memo for this opinion from the legal department. And it was effectively what I think many of us thought we would get. That initially it was, no, does it mean oldest or senior? No, senior means to interpret the senior amount of service. Because it says, again, on the question of whether the amount of service is consecutive, because said term does not exist in the city council rule, we interpret that there was no legislative intent to require that length of service be for consecutive years, which helps, I think, to clarify who our senior members are. Any other further discussion?
Motion that the orders are complied with.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, let's move to item 3.
4.
Oh,
Motion to take
you're
item
right. You're
4.
right. You're right. Item 4. This is also from me. This came to me from something that had been sort of coming in the works before. Ordered that all charter references to an assistant superintendent of public works be updated to assistant director of public works. This is because we have changed the titles. We've changed how we use these terms, and then we did not update them in the charter. So the goal is to respond to that tonight in order to accept these changes. And we are allowed to do that without a home rule petition.
Motion to adopt and send to legal, I guess, to make the changes.
Second.
Yeah, it's sort of a question. Mike, does this go to, we have City Solicitor Mike Bissonette on Zoom. Solicitor Bissonette, does this go to legal? Does this just go to the clerk? Who does this go to?
I'm going to have to say that because it says charter,
Yeah.
there is no reference in the charter to the assistant superintendent of public works. We do have to make an update to the title of the superintendent along with those other editorial changes, minor changes we've been discussing. But as I recall, the ordinance creating the position actually does say assistant director. It had been amended, I think, in the summer of '22, if I'm correct. So I don't think anything actually needs to be done on this one.
And is it updated in Municode?
I'm never comfortable confirming or denying what's in Unicode. I don't
So
know.
I
I
actually
believe
wonder
it is.
then
I
if
saw it. I think I saw it the last time I researched something for the Public Works Department.
Okay, then I do wonder if one of our next steps is to accept and to send to the clerk and to ask for confirmation that the changes have been made in Municode. What do we think about that?
It would be the clerk, and I don't know if Jeffrey's also getting trained on that. I thought they were working on that together, but I think
It would be the clerk, though. who
Yeah.
would be the keeper of the record.
that
I
makes
just
sense.
know that we've been
I'll
trying to make
amend my
sure that
motion,
these changes get made.
that we make sure the changes are made as recommended and send it to the clerk to be sure it's in Unicode.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, let's move to item 5. McGrath-Smith ordered that City Council Rule 7B be amended to allow speakers during public comment to speak for up to 3 minutes. The current rule allows for up to 10 speakers to each speak for 1.5 minutes. Do I have a motion to take this up?
So moved.
Second.
All right, under discussion. What do we think? The pros and cons, the merits, the costs.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
In the occasions where we get a greater number than the 10, wherein historically we've limited it and asked people not to repeat,
Yes.
how,
Yeah.
maybe if we're going to extend the time, we might want to also include what we would do if there's more than 10.
Yeah. What would we do if there was more than 10? In the past, what have we done? Just said, well, you the first 10 speak, and after that, no?
No, we've always allowed the people to speak, to my best recollection. And at times we have asked people to limit their remarks to
New.
a little bit shorter or not to repeat the same information, but to say they agree with it perhaps, just to keep it moving along. So
Is
I
that
think
at
there
the-
might have been a variety of things, depending, if there's 12 or if there's 20.
Right.
I wonder
know.
too if it's at the discretion of the council president to sort of
Right.
name in their framing as they're launching into it, if they're seeing 50 people versus 12 people. Right. Yes, I see Councilor Devine has her hand up. Yes.
I think all you need to do is suspend the rules to allow,
That's
you don't
true.
have to put a number there, to allow other people to speak. It's that
true.
simple.
All right, Councilor Bartley is joining us as well. Welcome. Okay, so you're right. We can always suspend the rules.
Yeah.
And if there's a 2/3 vote, we can suspend the rules to do so. If at any point there's more than 10 and we want to let more than 10 speak, that is true. Okay, I like that. That's an elegant solution because it refers to something that we already have.
I just want to clarify that the point of my comment wasn't to limit how many can speak. I think it's actually better if everybody who comes down that wants to speak can speak. It was more in the interest of time.
Right.
If everybody's given 3 minutes and we end up with 20 people, then you're talking an hour into the meeting. So my comment was more directed at the use of the time.
But could
I
we
really
limit
think
time
generally
after
if
10?
people make the effort to come down,
Yeah.
we should allow them to speak in the public comment, especially if they're residents of Holyoke. We've had a practice of allowing people from outside the city to speak, but I certainly think residents of Holyoke should be given first consideration, at public speak. But that was more what my comments were aiming at, because I don't want people to think there's only 10. And that
Okay.
we have to do a special thing,
Right.
that's all.
Would you like to, would you like to make an amendment to remove for up to 10? Because that piece could be removed entirely. It could just be to allow speakers during public comment to speak for up to 3 minutes. We could redact the rest of the rule.
That's another approach. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
It's just we've been spending a lot of time talking about efficient use of time.
Yeah.
And if we kept it 3 times 30, say, in the extreme example, would there then be a fair ability to change that? You know?
Right.
I'm not sure about that part.
I mean, a rule amended can always be amended back if we do it and it doesn't work. I mean, that is the beauty of a rule, is that it can be changed with a majority. But I do hear what you're saying about we really do value and want to promote and encourage folks to come down and speak, especially if they're residents of the city. And I think that the goal is to increase the time. I feel, and I've heard this under, happen under McGee and under Murphy Rumboletti. It's awful, that the chair, the president has to keep chiming in. You're almost done. It's 36, and constantly cut people off. And it doesn't feel comfortable to them when they've made the effort to come down to chambers, stand in the mic, and, to really share something that they're concerned about. And often people aren't polished public speakers used to coming to us. Right. It might take them a minute to get to their point, and that's okay. Yep. So I do love the thought of increasing it. I'm interested in the idea of maybe we do remove the up to 10, although I also love the concept of an efficient meeting. There's a balance to be struck there, I'm sure. Maybe we could increase it from 10 to something higher, or we could get rid of the number. Councilor Bartley, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate this order. It makes sense to some degree. We certainly want to hear from the public as often as we can. I don't think the chair has contemplated, at least to my knowledge, the online presence. So we have people that come online and with screenshots, not with their face online, and yet we give them a minute and a half. Now you want to give them 3 minutes. And then you mentioned bumping up against time. You cannot possibly be sure that won't happen. Bumping up against 3 minutes, it will happen. So then we'll have to give the market 2:30, 2:45, and 3 minutes, and yet they still have more to say. My only reason I would support this is because we have a cap at 10 o'clock. So, but frankly, the meetings go a tremendous long time. I think the last time I was at a subcommittee meeting, the chair we heard from a speaker right here at the DGR committee, and the chair had to read her entire 5.5, 6 minute written statement into the record. The whole thing was read. And so we do hear from the public quite a bit. And I think at the last meeting, you had Councilor Graney make a motion to suspend the rules and allow Brenda from Elmwood Towers, and the chair we were all fine with it, to go up to 3 minutes.
Yep.
So we have that flexibility, but now you're saying you want to give it 3 minutes mandatory? When we already know we can suspend our rules and it works pretty efficiently, and coupled with the online piece.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear somebody with a screenshot with a skull and crossbones on the screen screaming at me for 3 minutes. I had Mr. Former planning board member screaming at me long enough when I had a temporary chair. Now I took it, and I'll leave it there. But it's bad enough to have somebody yell at you for a minute and a half. Now I'd have to have somebody yell at me for 3 minutes. I don't think so. I don't like that. So I think if you give the chair flexibility like we do, the chair could just say, time out for a second. To the speaker, I can see you're not finished. How about I get a motion to suspend the rules for another minute so you can finish up? But that has not happened with the current city council president or the past city council president. But you could do it. Mm-hmm. So you just say to somebody, the chair's running the meeting. You just say, I can see respectfully you're not finished. I don't want to cut you off. I just got to get a quick motion to suspend the rules and give you another minute. Would that be okay? Everybody here is going to say second.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think you need to make it an official 3 minute deal here when you have a chair that's competent, running the meetings, knows what's going on. So, why force it? And I'll tell you what, at some point, Meg, you're going to be the one that's going to be a target of a tirade. It ain't pleasant. Now, like I said, I've been here more than a minute, so it rolls off my back now. I'm not saying I'm bulletproof, but I'm just saying it rolls off my back. But it's not fun. And so it's not fun for 90 seconds. It would be less fun for 3 minutes. So and meetings going on for so long, we haven't had to suspend our rules past that collect, but at some point we're gonna have to do it. And meanwhile, you have 45 minutes or an hour. Hartford does this already. City of Hartford does this already, but they have a separate meeting once a month where it's 3 minutes, and they can have a line of 50 people going out the door, and they just sit there and do it because they bake that in for one meeting a month. Now you're saying both meetings, and if you got a controversial topic, it just makes for a very unpleasant environment, especially when we know that we have to sit here, be the target, we can't respond. It's just something I would really ask you to sort of think hard about it, and I would say let this thing play out a little bit. I wouldn't want to see this pass tonight. I would say let it play out a little bit. Let's see how we do with the chair knowing that she's got, carte blanche power just to say, hey, listen, we know you need another minute. Yeah, well, I'll take a motion to suspend. Beautiful. I'll be the first one to say so moved.
Okay.
So I would rather just kind of play it by ear.
Okay, thank you. Solicitor Bissonnette, I have a question for you about one of the online questions that Councillor Bartley raised. Is it possible for us to require that folks can be seen on camera if they're going to do public speaking on Zoom?
Yes.
What'd you say?
They also can be required to provide an email address.
So that we can require them to be seen in order to engage in public comment?
I would say yes, but the problem is that we have to allow people by telephone to participate under the current law that goes through next March. We'll see if there are any changes, but I would believe cell phone access is going to continue.
Okay, thank you. And I also see Jeffrey's hand up. Do you want to weigh in on this question?
Yeah, so the lack of video is actually a function of the way I allow people to speak. So while somebody is an attendee, I can just hit a button allowing them to speak, or I can hit a button that brings them in as a panelist. And so it's partly an efficiency thing where if I bring somebody in as a panelist, we could be delayed, we're sitting there for 10, 15 seconds while they accept panelist and then realize that they can speak. The other part of that is that if I bring somebody in as a panelist and they're coming in for malicious intentions like Zoom bombing, if they're in as a panelist, it actually takes me longer to cut them off than just muting them if they're just in as an attendee. So that's kind of the pro and con of, allowing them to speak as just an attendee versus bringing them in as a panelist.
Thank you. Oh, that provides some good context, I think. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Vacant.
So listening to the discussion, I have a thought. What if we made a rule that said public speak may go on for 1.5 minutes and up to 3 minutes if needed? That would make it flexible. It wouldn't make it a rule. If somebody needs less, they're good to go. But if somebody needs the more, it's there.
Can I ask a question? What do you think the functionality of that would be different from just saying they can speak up to 3 minutes?
Some people, if they see a number, like a hard number, they think they should go to the number. Whereas if there's a range, they see it as a range with more flexibility. Just sort of my experience has been. But because on the other hand, if you say 3 minutes, you don't want people feeling like they have to come up and write the paper to the 3 minutes either.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, and I hear we're trying to figure out where's the middle ground. Yes, Councilor Murphy-Ramboldi.
2.25.
I was gonna say, so now that I've been in the position of president for a few months, I actually, looking at this initially, I thought maybe just making it, instead of 3 minutes, up to 2 minutes. And I just say up to 2 minutes because I do feel like it takes people a second to get comfortable speaking. And then I do interrupt them at a certain point in time to let them know that, which also, just a fun fact, I've really been thinking about maybe we just put a digital clock up on the screen.
Or just
Is that,
have the card like at a debate.
Yeah.
1 minute left.
right?
So you don't have
Or
to.
ring a bell. We've talked about all these things.
And Councilor Devine has an order coming forward to
there's an
council
order.
tomorrow that I
thanks.
see in a charter and
Talks
rules
just about
agenda
that.
coming soon to you.
Great. All right, great.
That is
And
about
that way,
having a digital alarm clock
You
or a
and
digital
Jeffrey
clock.
can control it.
That sounds great.
And it's
But-
just like the Congress. That's
Well,
Yeah.
what they look
and then
at.
you don't have to say,
Right,
to
and
constantly
interrupt them.
interrupt people. It's just there and it's
Right.
clear and the clerk can control it and,
Yeah.
So I do
Or the
see where
others.
Councillor Bartley is coming from, that I believe that, I mean, we've only, on average, we get 3 or 4 people who come. Obviously, if there's a controversial or hotly debated item, that could be more. And I can, whoever the president is, can act within their discretion to, suspend the rules. I think having that phrasing of up to helps. And whether that's up to 1.5 minutes, I often feel like public comment is the best time for the public to advocate to us for what they are hoping that we're making decisions on. Not necessarily, it's I don't know, it doesn't seem like I don't feel like we're always getting attacked necessarily, but if that's what they want to do, they have the right to do it. So, but anyway, I guess all that to say, I'd be open to up to 2 minutes if folks are warm to that. I honestly don't feel strongly either way. Okay.
I like the idea of 3 minutes, but I could be convinced that maybe we should, I don't know, we could split the difference and bring it down to 2.5 or something. I know it seems silly, but I do think that it takes people time to explain their thinking, and it's sometimes really miserable to try to figure out how to say it really concisely. Not everybody has that skill. And the other piece is that I really am tempted to keep it to the 10. Not that we can't suspend the rules in order to, we can suspend the rules at any time. The council president could suspend the rules and say, now that we've passed 10 people, I'd like to suspend the rules in order to allow the next 10 to speak, but we're going to limit the time, to Councilor Vacant's point, to 2 minutes at this point because we are past the 10 that are allowed in our formal rules. I think that that's a kind of a nice medium. I don't think I would want to just get rid of the cap entirely, because I do think that, if there's a time ever that we have, 60 people show up, the reality is that they may not all be able to speak by our 10 p.m. cap. I don't know.
Is anybody else waiting?
I've got the floor.
I kind of like the compromise that Tessa has put forth, sort of in between the two. It's giving more, but not going up to the 3. And I think it is responsive to the people who've indicated that they need a little bit more, and they don't really, I don't think necessarily want to be singled out to get more. They just want to be able to have it. So if we add a minute, then I think in the cases where the people need it, it would do it.
So I'll make a motion to amend it to allow the public to speak for up to 2.5 minutes. If we add a minute.
I said 2.
Oh, sorry, I misheard. I thought she had said a minute to the minute and a half.
Oh, well, I did make that comment.
You did?
but
Okay.
I think, no,
Did I get it wrong?
I made that as a comment, but Tessa, you're correct. You did say 2, and I will second your 2.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to make a motion to?
I'll make a motion that we amend the rule to allow speakers during public comment to speak for up to 2 minutes.
I'll second that.
Madam Chair?
Any further discussion?
Yep. I'd like to speak in favor of that, and I think that's a fair compromise, and to my recollection, I believe that's what we used to do, and all of a sudden we came up with this arbitrary rule, and that then became a real rule
Okay.
for 90 seconds. I mean, and then the whole point about people not being comfortable speaking, we all get it. And I think Tessa's gets it too, and she's not starting the clock the second they walk up to the microphone.
Yeah.
Right.
They're saying their name, and they're saying their address, and then the clock starts ticking. And plus, she gives a nice little presentation beforehand. Look, just get your thoughts together. You should always address the chair. You shouldn't be attacking anybody by name. Like I said, I let it go with the other guy because I was just running the meeting. I didn't want to deal with it. But you should just lay out the quick ground rules super fast. You get 2 minutes, gather your thoughts, only address the chair. You don't attack anyone by name. Commence. That's it.
Great.
Yeah, I agree that the framing matters for sure. Okay. Well, on the motion, I don't hear any further discussion.
Aye.
All right. Aye. And I think we can see what happens, right?
Sure.
That's the other piece. If we still are getting feedback that 2 minutes is not long enough, we'll take it up again.
Yeah.
But let's try 2 and see if that feels good to people.
Yeah.
Okay, item 6, this is from Murphy Rumboletti, bringing it back from June of 2022, ordered that the city council amend its rules to create a vice president position in the city council, and this has been tabled a number of times. We're taking it back up tonight with legal language that we have from the city solicitor's office. Thank you for giving us that. Do I have a motion to take it up?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Motion to take item 6 off the
Second.
All right, under discussion. I don't know if folks have gotten a chance to look at the document because it was sent very late.
Very briefly.
So I just want to quickly take a minute for us to look at this document in front of us. Counselor Bissonnette, I have a question because the top of the document seems to indicate a context that I don't know if this order has. So here it says that the City of Holyoke, through the Honorable City Council and Honorable Mayor, hereby petition the Massachusetts General Court to enact legislation to that end of amending the Charter of City of Holyoke to allow for the election of a City Council Vice President to serve as interim mayor in the event that both the elected mayor and the City Council President are unable to act as mayor. And I think that the role of the Vice President may respond to that reality, may be connected to that reality, but I do not think it is the only case in which it's important to have a vice president. I was thinking more broadly about wanting a vice president, not just for kind of a ceremonial purpose, but in the case that we have a city council president that cannot serve for a period of time, being able to have a vice president that could step into the role temporarily.
That would be managed through the internal rules of the council. This is a charter provision.
Okay?
Question that is responsive to the charter and to some discussions that were had during the last term as to what happened when Mayor Morris resigned and the council president was unable to commit to taking the position of mayor for a period of longer than a couple of weeks. The council was faced with having to go in with special act legislation, allowing the council to pick a successor. In this case, if you move forward with this home rule petition, you'll establish a vice president in the line of succession. If you don't wish to do that, then you can simply call for your own rules to establish a vice president whose function would be to essentially replace the senior member if the senior member if the president was unable to convene a council meeting or to convene the beginning of the council, I guess. Well, no, I guess that would still have to be a senior member because they wouldn't have elected a vice president yet, so that would stay intact.
Thanks,
I
Jeff.
hope I didn't confuse people even more.
That's all right. I see a few hands. Were you first or was it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Vacant, Murphy, Ramboletti, and then Devine.
Yeah, you're good.
So I don't think we need a charter change, and I don't think we need to anticipate a second-tier level need for mayor, because our president, when elected, understands that's part of the rule. We were in a unique and strange situation there, but I don't think the likelihood of it being repeated is huge. And I actually think, although it was awkward having to do the home rule petition, that the process that we did was good, as it turned out. In terms of the vice president, I like the senior member rule, and I'll explain why I like it. I like it because sometimes the president may be senior or may not be senior, but in the absence of the president, then I think it's good if it is a senior member. And if, say, the most senior member isn't available, then the next senior member still by definition would be the senior member, to take on the duty of running the meeting. And so I think it's really worked well. I don't have anything against the role of a vice president per se, but I think the senior member rule has been good in that when somebody has picked it up in the times, which aren't very many over the years, they're a person who's well-grounded in the workings of the council. That's just a perspective. Thank you.
Yep. Murphy, Ramboletti.
I actually had a question, I think for Attorney Bissonnette. I was under the impression that because it says in the charter, the section about the senior officer or the next senior member, that it would require a charter change in order to do that, and it wouldn't just be part of our rules. I thought that's what was discussed at a prior subcommittee meeting, but when I initially filed this order, it was with two intents in mind. It was because there was such confusion when Mayor Morse left and Councilor McGee wasn't able to assume those responsibilities. It wasn't super clear how that process should go. And I felt like filing this, creating that position would just make it as efficient as possible. And then the other part was, I think just because someone is a senior member doesn't necessarily mean that they want to run the meeting. I mean, so I think just if there was a vice president who understood that was their responsibility, and I was able to ask Councilor Bartley to fill in for me the day that I had to be on Zoom, but I didn't give him a ton of notice. And what if, Councilor Jordan was going to be on Zoom and Councilor Vacant was going to be on Zoom. So I felt like I felt bad. I had something that I just couldn't be there in person. So I don't know. Those are the reasons why I did it. But if Attorney Bissonnette, if you feel like that's something that just needs to be added to the rules, then that's different, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, I think the question is, are we talking about the initial organizational meeting of the council, which requires someone to lead it, and that would be the clerk calling it to order, but the senior member then would have to take the gavel until you elect a president, and then you would elect a vice president. Now, the charter question is different, and I don't want to say that I think it mimics the rules language, but there is a senior member reference there. So the vice president could be in line of succession, could not be in line of succession. My only concern is that if you have a vice president and you don't want them in the line of succession, then I would suggest that you don't do anything to the charter, create that position within your rules.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'll go after Divine. Counselor Divine.
Yeah, we just got this today, so I know a lot of us are quickly reading through it. And one of the things is, let's see, the president or vice president respectively may be removed from the presidency or vice presidency respectively of the city council by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members thereof taken by a roll call. I don't think we want to do that. And when this happened with Mayor Morse and Todd could not do the duties of the mayor, Terry Murphy took over, and he was not the senior member. So I think there are two different things here. One is a senior member that would take over a meeting. This is completely different. But I am concerned about that they can be removed. It doesn't say for cause or anything like that.
Okay. One thought that I've been thinking a lot about is that we are moving into a different era. Councilor Murphy Romboletti is our first female city council president. And the reality is that there are other things that may occur. If we continue to have, a mix of folks being president, at some point we're going to have a city council president who's pregnant. What happens then? Right? So it's not, right now our rules handle in case somebody can't be there to run a meeting on a specific evening. I'm talking about what happens if somebody gets sick and can't be president
Or travels out of town.
for 2 months, right? Kind of knowing there's a period of time in which they cannot discharge their duties. And I don't mean just facilitating meetings. I mean being available. I mean guiding the process, working with the clerk, all of the things, all the duties that the president does. And I value that often the senior member will be the person that has intimate knowledge of how to run a city council meeting, and a lot of just expertise on how all of the pieces come together and work. But it may not always be the person who is willing to step up or is able, through their capacity at work, their capacity in their personal life, to step up to take on a huge additional set of expectations. And so I wonder, in the coming decades, I don't think we're going to avoid seeing at some point a city council president who is pregnant and then maybe goes out for a 3-month paternity leave. So how can we create a system that is being proactive, knowing that there are a number of situations that could arise? It could be a medical issue, it could be a pregnancy, could be like what we saw, right? Where suddenly we need someone to serve as mayor. Can we build a role in that somebody knows I'm asking for the city council to vote for me as vice president, and I'm accepting this responsibility if it comes my way? Just knowing that we can't anticipate everything that's going to happen. Can we be proactive? So that was my thinking in wanting to bring this order up. And I know, because I can see from this response from the legal department, that this started in sort of a different context, and I'm reading it in a new context. Okay, I see Councilor Devine and then Councilor
It
Bartley.
also says, no counselor elected as president or vice president shall serve more than 3 consecutive 2-year terms as president or vice president. I don't think that's a good idea, especially if we have a good president. We certainly had Joe McGivern for an awful long time.
Just to clarify, that is in our rules, the term
It
limit
is,
for
okay.
president.
Well, then how did that happen?
That was changed. Oh, that was changed during Councilor Jourdain's presidency.
Okay,
After Councilor McGivern.
okay.
That's all.
Yes, Councilor Bartley.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Couple things. Let me just go backwards where I was going to present this. I agree. I don't think we should have a removal, but I think what Mike is doing here is just throwing everything in for consideration. So, I appreciate all that he did. So I, for one, would not want the removal part in there. I do want the term limits to continue, and I think and that's all it is a 3-term term limit. To have somebody be city council president for 13 straight terms is something unusual, where most cities rotate it, and they do that. It just makes sense to have a different voice. So 3 terms of 2 years, we felt when we changed the rules in 2016 or whatever it was sufficient. And I think the vice president deal should mirror it. I would also like to have it be that the city council president appoint the vice president. I don't feel like we need to have another election. So I think the city council president should just appoint the person. And some people would disagree with me, and I just feel like the vice president thing would make sense only because it takes away the senior person is, I realize that it's tangible, but I mean, the senior person could be somebody who was here consecutive terms, or somebody who was gone and came back but had a lot of seniority way back when, and then they came back. Are they still a senior person? Why don't just make it a vice president? Why don't just make it simple? And you get rid of the senior person business. And so I think I said what I had to say about the voting somebody out. I would not necessarily support that. I don't just think it breeds too much tension. I would like to keep the term limits exactly the way they are. 3 terms is plenty, and the VP and the president should be at the parallel. And then I would prefer to see the president of the city council appoint the vice president. and I think the title is fine. I would also, my last point is that I think we should just change our rules to reflect that. But at the same time, I think based on what happened a few years ago, as previously discussed, I think we should pursue a charter change on a parallel track. So let's get this thing in motion. Let's get this in our rules. It's real simple. And then at the same time, pursue a parallel track to get the charter change, because I think it just makes for an extra layer of security, so we don't have to. And thank God we had Terry. I'll tell you, I'm glad I could have thought of that. I mean, thank God we elected Terry. He did such a great job, to be completely commended for 18, 12, whatever he did. I mean, so many hours a day. He was stupendous. And he would not only be in the building, he'd be out in the field and meeting in the wards. He certainly met in Ward 3 with me multiple times while he was acting mayor. It was just great. It was beyond the scope of what I could have ever imagined. And I don't even think I voted for Terry in the first swing. But I'm so grateful he got the votes, and he was such a credit to the city and to the mayor's office. And but I mean, that was luck. That was a lot of luck, and it was good luck. And so I think having a situation where you have we already elected a president, and have the president, she or he, whatever, appoint a vice president that the president feels like is, could do the job or whatever. Do the job while she or he is out in the field doing whatever, or if something happens and the mayor leaves and I can't, as president, serve, I got a VP that I have confidence in. So it takes some thought and effort, but I mean, the president of city council is kind of involved with stuff that we're not really involved with. And to set that up for another election, come on, I don't think that's the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to note what's interesting, and if you look at Rule 3B, it says, in the absence of the president, the senior member present shall call the city council to order. The city council shall then proceed to ballot for a president pro tempore, and a plurality of the vote taken shall be sufficient for a choice. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is just because I've missed it, but I feel like in the past we haven't gone through that formality. The council has sort of accepted the person who has.
Oh, we went through the formality. Absolutely, we did.
Have we? Okay.
Yeah, we haven't done a roll call vote, but we've done a vote.
We made a motion, got approved by voice vote.
Got it.
Of course
Okay.
we did.
So I guess the question is, if we want to change our rules, there are a number of rules that would have to be changed in order to allow for it to be a vice president instead of a senior member. And we would need to, kind of redline the rules and find those places, and then kind of come up next meeting with a very clear sense of, we're asking for a B to be changed to this, a new rule I to be created that allowed us to do this. Yes, Vacant.
I just want to throw in a couple different perspectives. One, I like the idea of electing the vice president because both people are representing the body. And I just think that's good process. That's me. The other thing I like, better than saying, vice president, if I can't serve, you're it, in the rare occurrence that an acting mayor is needed, I like the process of election for that also, because there's no guarantee that the vice president would be in the position to be the acting mayor any more than the president if the president accepting the position, knowing it's part of the role, can't do it. I mean, I just don't think it creates a warranty, I guess I'd say, but not a guarantee. And I kind of like the idea of an election, because in the moment and at the time, whatever unexpected thing happens, everybody's in a different place and has different goals and aspirations, and that could make a difference. And
So a question there. Then there's this idea of replacing senior member where it exists with vice president, so that there is an elected or appointed by the president role to kind of step in for individual meetings. But there's another idea of we could not do that and just keep senior member where it is for those kinds of formalities and one-off things that occur, and instead add a rule that says, in the case of an extended absence beyond one meeting, a vote shall be taken to establish a vice president.
right, and I suppose, to take my thought a little further, it could be that in the case where the president and the vice president were unavailable to serve, then it would go to an election of the body, of the council. In that rare, which has only happened, very rarely in 150 years, so, but
Yep.
never say never. It could be the third step, perhaps.
Would you be interested in just keeping senior member where it is in terms of running the one-off meetings, and then just having a vote in the
I mean,
case
I'm
that
good-
one is
I'm
needed
good with
for
that.
extended time?
Yeah, I'm good with either.
Murphy or Belletti?
Counselor Devine had her hand up
Just
first.
quickly, while the mayor was on vacation, the city clerk was the acting mayor. Okay, so you have to figure that as well.
I was just gonna say that the rule you mentioned about in the absence of the president, the senior member present shall call the city council to order. That's really what the senior member does.
That's true.
I think in the past, like it was always Joe's gonna run it, and Joe happened to be the senior member, and we did do the formality of voting and stuff, but like it was definitely just like this thing that kind of always happens. But I think I liked what Councilor McGrath-Smith said about creating, maybe it's just actually creating another rule in there that just says if a president is, for whatever reason, going to be absent for
Period of time.
Unable
a
to
period of
discharge their
time,
duties.
because you're right, there's all this stuff that goes on throughout the week that the city council president does, and it's even just signing off on Jeffrey's vacation requests and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think creating, if I'm happy to suggest some language in between now and the next meeting, just and see what you guys think, and yeah. But I'm definitely, I'm open to, I hadn't thought of having it be appointed by the president. I was thinking it would be something that was like voted in. That was just when I was looking at all the examples that were provided. So I'm definitely open, but I think just having something for us to review as it relates to an actual rule would be good. But I agree with Councilor Bartley, if moving the other piece forward, trying to, amend some of this language of the act to create the vice president, that does address some of the stuff we were talking about, but I don't know.
I would like to make a motion to table it to the 5/13 meeting. Gives us a week to sit on it, think about it, go back through the rules, come up with some really tight suggested language, and then we'll come back to it next week.
Second. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That was really productive. Okay, item number 7. Murphy Ramboletti ordered that the city council establish a rule that requires any resident running to fill a vacant city council seat will need to obtain 50 signatures from eligible residents in order to be considered by the full city council for appointment. This was tabled January 9, 2023, and also 3/25/24. And we do have legal language for this one as well. Can I have a motion to take up the item?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, under discussion.
So if I may, I filed this order just with the intent that I felt like having this as a requirement would just encourage folks to get out in the community, meet their constituents, the same that we do for to get on the ballot regularly for a regular election. That was my intent. I think it helps people know what they're running for, and it helps the general public and their constituents just be aware that there's an opening. And I don't think it hurts to ask people to do what we already do for a position. So that was my intent. And I will admit I was able to briefly look this over, but I'm going to look at it now.
The language looks solid to me. It's what I expected to see. Vacant?
Well, I have a question because if it says, okay, so the problem is that the charter says the council will appoint. Is that the issue?
Yeah.
But is there anything, the council can still appoint?
Yeah.
And why would making a rule to get 50 signatures require a charter change? We're still going to be appointing. We're just making a rule.
That's a great.
You have to get the signatures. I don't see why you'd have to change the charter.
When I initially filed it, if I may, through the chair, when I initially filed it, I didn't realize that this would need to happen. So when I saw it, I wasn't totally sure as well.
So if I could, through the chair, ask Attorney Bissonnette, can't we just put it in a rule?
I believe that you can. The council has made rules with regard to time and dates for submission of resumes and applications, conducted interviews, proceeded to discuss the candidates and vote by ballot. So this adds one more requirement, and it is consistent, as the charter requires, with the same rules that the original candidate had to comply with. So I think you're on a good order there. Yes, you could do it by a charter amendment, but you're not really amending anything in the charter. You're just explicating what the city council, which has the full authority to fill a vacancy, is going to require in order to be considered. So I would say, yes, Councilor Vacant, a rule could do it as well as the charter change.
Thank you.
If we were going to add this as a rule, then we could use the exact same language, starting from the city council may elect a candidate.
Right.
And then the question is, what rule would that be? Let's name that into the record. Let me look in the rules. Where do we have it currently that we can appoint? Attorney Bissonnette, do you know
Under voting?
which rule it's underneath currently? Is it under 8 voting?
I'm thinking, but
I believe it is
I'm
under
talking off
voting.
the top of my head. So while he's looking at that, I think we would have to be careful to give an adequate amount of time. And, there would have to be parameters, like for the election. If we're going to require people to get signatures, they have to have time to get them, so I don't know what would be fair in that regard.
Councilor Barkley?
Thank you. So, first off, I think it would require a charter change. I don't see how we can just do it in our rules when the charter says one thing, and you can't just usurp it by a rule. So I'm not even sure how that's permissible. Second off, I don't have a problem getting signatures, but let's be real. We when we pull papers in January, we have until when? August to turn them in, or whatever it is. So you get 7 or 8 months to get 50 crummy signatures, and now we want to get somebody on the, somebody on the ballot, and we want to get this done in 2 weeks. So now, I mean, first of all, it's intimidating enough to even step up here. We just talked about that. It's intimidating to step up to a mic. So now we're adding another layer for somebody to want to serve their community in an acting manner, where we've had this process for how many decades, and it almost seems like this is. I mean, the city council has a finite amount of authority, and this is one of the areas. And what if it's the mayor? What if it's the treasurer? You're gonna have to change this for the treasurer again, how many signatures, or the mayor again, how many signatures, or change all these rules. I don't think this is, while it's a noble idea to try to get people, and if they want to run for a full term, then go get the signatures just like everybody else has to do. Pull your papers in January and turn them in August or July or whatever it is. But to add this extra layer on, I mean, after what we're just saying, how it's intimidating coming in here, well, now we're saying, okay, well, even though it's intimidating, go figure out how to pull papers and make sure you get the right amount of signatures and do it within a time frame. But you don't get 6 months; you get 5 weeks.
Yes.
Everybody else gets 6. Everybody else gets 6 or 7 months. So I don't think this is a bad idea, but I think it should require a charter change. I think it should really be limited, not 50 signatures, because they only have a finite amount of time. So it should be a fraction of the time that we have, and the amount of signatures should be reflected accordingly. And if that's the case, get 5 signatures, well, what does that prove? So I think just getting anybody to step up and wanting to serve in the role, even an acting position, I think that's to me, that's pretty good. They put together a resume, they stand here and get interrogated by us for whatever reason. I don't even know why we do that, because it doesn't matter. I mean, all they have to do is get the majority of votes and they're elected. So I say, this is a nice thought, but I don't think the time is right for that. So I personally would not support it. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I want to name is that I've been combing through the rules. Attorney Bissonette, I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere that in our rules we have the right to appoint vacancies.
Oh, it's in the charter.
So I
It's
think
in
it's
the charter,
only
but there are
in
no
the
rules to
It's in the
that.
charter.
So I think
There
it's
are no
only in the
rules to that
charter.
charter provision.
Right. So I think if we wanted to modify our rules, we can do that. The question, of course, is whether or not we want to move forward with a charter change as well. But I do think that we should definitely put it in our rules. Maybe it's a question to bring to the full council around whether or not we want to pursue a charter change. But I'd like to hear where we stand on that. If we did change our rules, and I think we should, regardless of whether we move forward with a charter change, then it would be including the language here, starting with the city council may elect a candidate, and all of the bold language following that. And it would likely fall underneath voting, which is 8, and would be a new rule, which would be Rule O. 8O.
No.
Okay. Councilor Vacant and then Councilor Devine.
Thank you. So a couple of things. If we make it a rule that we are asking candidates to fill an unexpired term, so it will have to be greater than 18 months but less than 24. Okay, so it's a very limited window of time that we're talking about. So I take Counselor Bartley's point relative to signatures seriously in that regard. Secondly, what I would like to see in the rules is that the obtaining of signatures from the respective area, whether it's a ward or at large, would be considered by the council
But
in
not
terms of
required.
making an appointment, but not required to be eligible for consideration, would be where I would fall on it. And then people can make their own judgment what the worth of it is in terms of their vote. Because at the end of the day, it's each person voting, and the first person who gets 7 votes has the position, right? Because somebody could say, well, they didn't follow the rule. Well, that's happened before, and things still happened, right? So I would make it as a part of the process rather than a requirement of the process. Because then you get into the whole thing. Do they have to be certified signatures, or can they just be signatures of residents, which are 2 different things? You know, and then you're really getting into the weeds. And so I think, not to belabor it, that if it's informative, it would be helpful, but if it's compelled, then maybe it cuts out too many people.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Devine?
Yeah, I think too that the intent was good, but I think trying to work it out is a little more difficult when people, you know, if they're forced to go get signatures, they may just say it's not worth it. And I know with Terry Murphy, he certainly was appointed, and he said that was it. He wasn't going to run again because his wife was going to kill him if he did. But so something like that, I think maybe we just keep it the same. If there's a vacancy, we're going to advertise that there's a vacancy if anybody's interested. Obviously, if it's a ward seat, they have to live in the ward or at large, and then they're interviewed like they've always been interviewed. And then even if they're not interviewed, 7 votes is all somebody needs. Doesn't have to be somebody that applied. So that's always been the rule. Frustrating as it is, but.
Okay. Murphy Ramboletti, what's your will?
I don't feel strongly
on
enough
this
about
order?
this, so
This was your order, so.
it's
what-
all good. I'll give it leave to withdraw.
I'll second that.
It's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Good discussion.
Yep.
Great points brought up.
Yep.
You know, we'll
Want to do a vote.
see what happens.
That's all right. Okay, so we'll move to a roll call vote. Oh, no, we could just do a vote. I'm so used to having to do roll call votes that I keep forgetting. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I think that I'll vote no, and that's okay. I think I'm okay with it moving forward to the 2-1, because I do hear the arguments, although I like the idea that folks have to prove they have some public support coming to fill a vacancy, which I think was sort of the spirit of it. But I also do hear the arguments around we're trying to fill these positions quickly, often under sort of a bit of duress, right? Like, will you please step in and do this because we need a full complement on council, and you'd be great, but please, will you give us your service? So I do hear that loud and clear, and I'm grateful for the folks who have stepped in the past in order to do that. Okay, let's move to number 8.
Motion to take item 8.
Second. I was just looking to see.
Should we do a
take up
package?
8, 9, 10, and 11 because they all go together?
I would second that. If that's the.
I sort of want to take them one by one because then we can have very clear votes on which ones we want to give leave to withdraw, move with recommendation, move without recommendation.
All right, motion take up item 8.
Second.
So item 8, and I'll just name as the framing of this. This is going to likely sit in this committee for a while, and that's because there are things that have to happen in ordinance. There's a potential ballot question that has to go to the people to see what they want to happen, and then we will then have to respond. But I wanted to put it out there because we are going to have to file a home rule petition to be filed with amendments to the city charter is required for consistency with state law pertaining to our city's restructuring and municipal finance, potentially. But we have to see how this process plays out. So here in this body tonight, we're going to be talking through, items 9 and 10, 11 around what we're going to do with the role of the treasurer. That will have to be a home rule petition. It will also have to be a ballot question. Ordinance will have to do what they need to do around developing clear guidelines and roles and responsibilities for different members in the finance department, if that's the direction that the council goes in. And then that may trigger other changes that need to be made in charter. But we don't necessarily know what those are yet. So currently, I wanted to throw it in there that this is something that is likely to just be tabled until we have the capacity to know what ordinance has done, and then we'll know what charter changes need to be made, if any.
Okay.
I would just suggest that at the time that the home rule petition is needed, it will probably be coming initially out of ordinance, and then the council can simply require a home rule petition.
Yep.
I don't know that it would have to go from the committee
Right.
to the
Or,
committee. Do you know what I
or it
mean?
may be a combined
Necessarily,
charter and
but it
rules
could.
ordinance meeting if we wanted
Yep.
to have one combined meeting or a joint meeting. So I'm not exactly sure what the process is going to look like. And so I was
Exactly.
trying to put something in
So
the
just to
agenda
leave it
that
broad.
it's there.
Yeah.
If we need it, we can pull it off the table and use it in whatever scenario
Right.
we have to use it in.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion to table it for now.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Motion to take up item 9.
Second.
Okay, this is from Bartley, Jordan, and Vacant from the April 2nd meeting. And it reads, the City of Holyoke amends any charter ordinance and any other regulations relative to its tax collector and combines the office with its city treasurer so long as a charter change to appoint rather than elect Holyoke city treasurer is approved by the legislature and Holyoke voters. All right, under discussion. Bartley, since you are in chambers, would you like to speak to this?
We're on item
9?
9.
Do you want Megan? Do you want to go first?
I can start if you want. So the idea is, and we do have a number of moving parts, but the idea is to accomplish the consolidations along with the changes in structure. Because otherwise, we're just simply going to be building a bigger bureaucracy that will cost more money. So the goal of this order is to be sure that we are accomplishing some of those efficiencies along with the changes in structure. To state thumbnail.
Yeah.
Counselor Bartley can embellish if he wishes, but that's the core of it to me.
Do you want to speak to this, Councilor
Well,
Barton?
it's pretty straightforward. I hope I wrote that more or less clearly, that I think we want to, and we've talked about this for a number of years, and Rory's in support of it, and I think most people are. And, frankly, we've got a really good tax collector in there. I think the time is right to combine the offices. They're already working hand in glove as it is, right? We already have floaters between those two offices. That started before this order was even thought about. So hopefully that'll materialize. I think, as the chair pointed out, that there are other things happening here that relative to the CAFO and who appoints whom and all the rest of that. And I don't think this is a place we don't have to get into those weeds right now. But I made my position very clear on how I feel about it, and I think any counselor here I would hope, would want to stand up for this body. And as I said earlier, we have a finite amount of authority relative to the executive side. And I think by us passing the buck, I don't think it does the public any good. It's not about personal aggrandizement. It's not about personal power. It's about open and public process, supporting the traditions of the city government going back more than a minute. And I'm hopeful that that'll resonate, although I have my doubts, but I hope it'll resonate to some effect that this is a pretty fair compromise. Put the offices together, have it be appointed by the city council. The mayor's got to sign off on it regardless, so if the mayor vetoes it, then it's got to come back and get override by 2/3. So I don't know what the problem is, but apparently there's a problem. So So that, I mean, the mayor still has a role. That's the part. It's hard to get that to penetrate, but maybe it will on the 10th swing. So, I mean, it's not like this body just says it and it's done. The mayor's got to sign off on it. And if the mayor vetoes it, then it's 2/3 and it comes back. So apparently that wasn't good enough. And but maybe it will be down the road if people put some thought into it and just consider the history of the city and the public process. I just think it makes for a good, fair public process on camera, not in a private room. You do it right here in room 11. And if somebody, and I don't want to hear this part about, no, geez, it's tough to come down. Okay, well, if you're applying for that job, you better be ready to stand in front of a camera and go figure it out, okay? You can't just, you better have a resume prepared, and you better be ready to answer basic questions from 13 very unique persons. They're gonna have some, they're gonna want answers. So that's a different level than stepping up as a public speak out or even filling a position for a vacancy. It's a different kind of thing, and you got to be ready for it, and you should come in here and have to deal with it, not have a private conversation in a back room out of the public light, because it is a public position. It's always been a public position. And so if we can just get to that point where we have a meeting of the minds and we can just, these ships can both sail away, and I think they'll be non-controversial in Boston, and hopefully with everybody behind it here, that we can get it passed by the electorate. And I think it's very important that the electorate has a vote on it. Maybe they'll want to say no, and if that's the case, well, go back to where we were. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilor Devine?
Yeah, it's a couple things. Item number 9, item number 10, item number 11 are conflicts completely.
Yeah.
And so this is where it becomes difficult. Right here, where in item number 9 is relative to the tax collector and combines the office with the city treasurer, so long as a charter change to appoint, doesn't say by whom, rather than elect Holyoke City Treasurer, is approved by the legislature and the Holyoke voters. And I think we can check with Attorney Bissonnette. If this goes down, any of these go down to the general court without the mayor's signature, it's not going anywhere.
Yes. Well, that is true.
Councilor Bissonnette, am I correct?
Has to be approved. Any home rule petition has to be approved by both the legislative body and the chief executive. If either or do not agree, the only other way a home rule petition can be passed is by the governor submitting it to the state legislature. So directly, no, unless Mayor Garcia signs off, it's not going anywhere.
Yep.
I would note, this is not a home rule petition. This is sort of a gatekeeper to say, if the people vote to have an appointed treasurer, that position by this order would be combined with the collector. You'd figure out all the other dynamics later. The next two, items 10 and 11, differ in one significant manner. Item 10 says that an appointed treasurer would be appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the council. Item 11 says that it would be appointed by the city council only. Both have the same terms, and both are essentially the same ballot question as was put on the ballot the last time the voters considered this.
Okay. Bacon.
So I don't see item 9 in conflict with 10 or 11. I think the conflict, which hopefully will be sorted out at city council, is between 10 and 11. And if one that is not to the mayor's liking is sent to him, he won't sign it. And then we'll all be back to the table with these 3 orders as we wish to reconsider or continue to consider them. And then, of course, 9, as Councilor Bartley said, won't go anywhere if the voters don't approve an appointment of the position in the first place. So everything's pending on everything else, but I do think the main thing between us, and I personally didn't come into the meeting tonight really expecting to debate, well, we're not on 10 and 11 yet, but I'll hold my discussion, but we've all kind of set our positions on those.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have to reiterate everything, but that was why my initial goal was to take up the ones together, because
Yep.
if we're gonna move, 9 would have to be tabled anyway, because we have to wait to see what the will of the voters will be, like your order relative to.
Yes. Well, I think that's sort of
charter.
where I'm going with item 9 is I think that it's an interesting concept, but there are so many moving pieces here that I don't think that there's a way to move forward with it, even if we wanted to. Tonight, I think I've gone through the timeline earlier today. I was going through and just writing, I think this happens in May, this could happen in June, this would happen we have to wait till November for this, and then ordinance would do that, and then turn rules would do that. Like, there's a flow here. And I also think that what's likely to happen is that the CAFO position and the treasurer are sort of like the first pieces of trying to figure out this restructuring. And I think we have to see, and I know that we're moving forward into budget season where we're going to be asking the mayor to show us the budget and show us how this works or doesn't. If the CAFO is in the budget, then does it work? Have you balanced it? Have you found a way? If you are, are you planning to combine the officers of treasurer and collector? I think this is an ongoing negotiation and conversation that we have to have through the budgetary hearings that are going to be happening this month. And I think those pieces start now, but probably won't come to fruition right away. I think it's gonna take a bit for us to figure out the path forward.
Well, for the moment, I'll offer a motion to table this item.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to take up items 10 and 11 as a package.
Can we take them up separately?
Sure.
Would you mind?
You can vote on them
Sure.
separately.
I mean, I'm just bringing the issue up so we can talk about one or the other at the same time. We can vote on them uniquely.
You might look at item 12 too.
Okay.
But if you want to go one at a time,
I'd prefer if you don't mind.
okay.
Okay. Let's start by taking up item 10. This is from Murphy Ramboletti, October 4th, 2022. And this is for us to...
Time ago.
Was.
Sorry. I just realized that. It was a long time ago. Sorry.
It was, yeah. That the City of Holyoke, through its Honorable City Council and Honorable Mayor, hereby petitions the Massachusetts General Court to enact legislation establishing an appointed treasurer for the City of Holyoke in the form set forth below, provided, however, that the General Court may reasonably vary the form and substance of the requested legislation within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. An act establishing an appointed treasurer for the City of Holyoke. This act proposes to change the city treasurer from an elected position to an appointed one. The appointment will be made by the mayor with approval of the City Council for a term not to exceed 5 years, and qualifications for the position may be established by ordinance. If adopted, the treasurer elected in the 2023 municipal election will fill the vacancy in the office for the remaining 2 years, and a treasurer will be appointed to the position following the expiration of that term in January 2026 or sooner if the office is vacated. All right, under discussion. Murphy Ramboletti.
Thank you. So it was a while ago that I filed this order. And I've talked to the mayor. I've heard from other counselors and what their position is. And honestly, in the spirit of compromise and also feeling like it's really important to have a CAFO position. And I've heard from other counselors how, if we have the CAFO, then we can't give this up as the city council, and, combining the position of treasurer with the tax collector. So, I'm in the spirit of compromise, and if this gets us a CAFO, then I'm willing to withdraw my order, and we can have the treasurer, the conversation about item number 11. And we just do it that way. And hopefully that means, we get a CAFO, because that's what I've heard from counselors, that if we have a CAFO, we should appoint the treasurer and we appoint the tax collector. So if they're combined, sounds good. That's where I'll leave that.
Okay.
Because compromise is not always getting what you want.
It's true. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay. I will say that I initially had some reservations about City Council being given the appointment, primarily because I feel like it's important for us to make sure that the role of the mayor has the correct supervisory power in order to make sure that people underneath him are functioning effectively in their roles. But it took some time to go back through the ordinances where it spells out what supervisory role the mayor does have, even with a city council appointment. And that did make me feel a lot better. So that's something that sort of allowed me to see a path forward where I could support a city council appointment. So I appreciate the compromise, Counselor.
It's adulting.
All right. Anyone else want to speak on the subject? Okay. On the motion? All in favor?
It needs a second. Did you
Oh.
second it?
Myself.
What's the motion?
The motion to give leave to
sorry.
withdraw of item 10.
I missed that part.
Well, I will second it if you don't want to.
Okay. All right. So any further discussion? All right. On the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Motion to take up item 11.
Second.
All right. Item 11, this is from October 17th, 2023, Vacant and Jourdain. Ordered the City of Holyoke through its Honorable City Council and Honorable Mayor hereby petitions the Massachusetts General Court to enact legislation. And it is the exact same reading as the last agenda item, except that it says instead of, appointment by mayor, it says that the appointment was made by City Council. One piece that I do want to name is that the last time we talked about this, we all were in favor of certain changes to the language.
Yes.
So I want to rename those, and I don't know if somebody is ready to kind of name them. I'm sure that.
I noted a couple things.
Okay, and if we can amend it with that language before we bring it for discussion to council.
So I would offer on item 11, I think these amendments might have been made in council and then sent back to us, but just in case they haven't, that the term not to exceed 5 would be amended to 3. And
Was it 3 or 4?
So
3, we went
Just
back and forth, but we ended up on
Tax
3,
collectors.
so they wouldn't match.
Yeah.
Because it would create
Mm-hmm.
a big gap.
Okay.
Um,
And didn't we
then the
change
other one was
confirm
that-
to approve?
I'm sorry?
Am I remembering it was confirmed to approve?
I know we said shall be established by ordinance, qualifications, instead of may. We changed to shall.
Okay.
And then you had another one?
Didn't we remove everything from if adopted on? Or did we? Because it no longer applies, because we don't, it mentions the 2023 municipal election.
Oh,
I think
So
you could
maybe-
take that clause out. So it would then read, if adopted, a treasurer will be appointed to the position following the expiration of that current term in January 2026 or sooner if the office is vacated.
so if adopted. So the motion is to eliminate from elected in 2023 through to, for the remaining 2 years, and a treasurer. If we eliminate that, it will then read, if adopted, the treasurer will be appointed to the position following the expiration of that term.
Or
The term.
sooner. Yeah, of the current term or sooner if the position is vacated.
in January 2026, or sooner if the office is vacated. So that'll be the amendment, third amendment.
Okay. Do I have a second for that language?
Oh, sorry, second. I was reading the minutes from the last.
Yeah, I went back through them
Yeah.
too to be like, what were all the changes
Yeah.
that we said we needed to make?
Second.
Okay, did we capture all of them?
3 years shall, and eliminating the old language.
Okay, I think that's it.
Madam Chair, just
Yes, Counselor Devine.
item 12. This was from August of '23.
Yes.
Does that figure out anything in here? Because it talks about a home rule petition for an appointed treasurer.
Yep, let me find that.
And I don't have that, so I don't know what it says.
Okay.
I think that's the original
Yeah.
ballot question.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. But we're still on the amendment of item 11. Right?
Yeah, and what we'll find is in some of the language from the original one is very similar to this. So when we get to that, we'll just make a motion to revise it based on the decision we made on item 11.
Sure. So we have the amendments made and seconded.
Yep. All right, any further discussion? Okay. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, can I have a
Motion to take up item 12.
Thank
Second.
you. Okay, this is the home rule petition for the appointed treasurer. This was drafted back in August of 2023 from attorney Kathleen Degnan, the assistant city solicitor. It reads, an act establishing an appointed treasurer, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives and General Court assembled and by the authority of the same as follows. Section 1, Sections 3 and 5 of Chapter 327 of the Acts and Resolves of 1936 are hereby repealed. Section 2, the position of treasurer shall be an appointed position. The appointment will be made by the mayor with city council confirmation for a term not to exceed 3 years. And the qualifications may be established by ordinance. The treasurer elected in the 2023 election will fill the vacancy in the office for the remaining 2 years, and a treasurer will be appointed to the position following the expiration of that term in January 2026 or sooner if the office is vacated. Section 3, this act shall take effect upon its approval by voters. And this was, of course, of the acts of 2023. So we'll need to make a few amendments here in order to align this with what we voted on or we're recommending to council from item 11.
So.
We
my
will
motion-
update that, Madam Chairman,
My motion would
Thank
be
you.
to
tomorrow
refer-
for the summary and the question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All
My
right.
motion will be to refer to legal to update the language as we just voted for our meeting tomorrow.
Second.
Can we get that by tomorrow, Attorney Bissonnette?
I think he said that. I think
Is that what you said? I'm sorry if you said it.
My
Did I
feet
hear
are
you say
like
that?
wings. Yes.
I thought I heard him say that, or I didn't say it.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so there was a motion there. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We have a number of items that are laid on the table here, and it was, of course, named in the agenda as discussion is unexpected. I'm slowly making my way through the jacket for charter rules and making really good progress. We have another meeting next week where we'll be taking up a number of items that have been in the charter for quite some time, along with some other agenda items that I'm sure will move to us tomorrow night. In case the general public is interested to kind of know what's coming, the June meeting that we have will take up the issue of the police commission, which has been sitting in the jacket for quite some time. We'll take that up for discussion and see where it goes. Because I do think that things in the jacket should be moved forward so that we can have discussions and either move them forward or give them leave to withdraw. Okay, thank you everybody for a good meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you.
Everybody, good night.
Aye.
Aye.
Voting
Aye. Voting aye.